All right. Welcome to the April 1st, 2021 meeting of the Greenfield Planning Board at 6:03. I'm calling the meeting to order. We have a quorum here.
Can I ask Charles if anyone had indicated they couldn't make it?
No.
Okay.
So
they did take it as an April Fool's.
Yeah, they thought maybe it was April Fool's. Yeah. So we are here. Let's do a quick roll call. I know we don't normally do this, but I think we should do it because just so we know who's here. So I'm Charles Roberts. I'm here, and George Tlemcen
Here.
Mark Maloney
here.
Emily Esch not here. Amy McMahon not here, and Nathaniel Hussey has been approved, but he's not here either. I don't know if there's a waiting period or not, but so.
And as I said, Charles, contrary to what it shows on the website, which I would not assume to be 100% accurate, I happened to listen to the council meeting, and it was specified that he was being appointed as an alternate. That's my clear recollection from that.
All right. So we still need we need one more full member.
Yeah.
We have two alternates. Okay. Mark, are you going to be our acting clerk for this meeting?
I just made note of the time, thinking that you probably would want me to do so. I think I kind of was inducted as Emily's alternate in the interim, so I just assumed that it was going to fall to me. So yes, I am. I'm starting to take notes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Of course.
Well, I think we have a short meeting today. The first order of business is just to approve the minutes for March 18th. And Emily took some pretty detailed minutes here.
Yeah.
I had one comment.
Intimidatingly detailed.
Yeah. I don't think she needs it. Yeah, I mean, usually you don't have to get into like a call and response, sort of rigor, but I had one comment on page 5 of 6 where I was looking for a way to revise MDR to encourage more development. I mean, I think and make less restrictive. That wasn't what I was getting at. Yes, encourage development through a balanced approach, and I know that's vague, but it's not making it less restrictive. It's about weighing trade-offs, potential trade-offs. If this then that, and having those be sort of stated in the ordinance, and so I gave that example as just kind of like a sort of a blunt instrument kind of an idea. I wasn't necessarily saying that's what we should do, but as an example of creating trade-offs within the bylaw where there might be discretion to relax one standard in order for relax one aspect of a standard if there's a quid pro quo. It could be a benefit. George?
Yeah, the minutes were distinct, and I admire her trying to be so incredibly thorough. The downside is when you're trying to get everything, some things, if they're not, there can be a lot of inaccuracies potentially brought up into that. So I have quite a list of typos, or also some more substantive, kind of like what you're saying, Charles. It didn't seem to really capture the tone or the content of a comment particularly well. So I don't know if we want to slog through all those verbally tonight, or if we would want to defer this and we submit, because I think we can submit to each other recommended edits as long as we don't have back conversation about those.
Yeah.
Is that right? So then we could have them in front of us, some alternative suggestions about changing the minutes for the next meeting.
Yeah.
Is that your sense, Mark, that that would be okay to, as long as we're not discussing it back and forth?
I think so. And I mean, frankly, even if it violated on some level, like it's deliberation around the acceptance of minutes. It's not deliberation on like a zone change. But I would wonder if it actually, if we did just all kind of email comments to Eric for him to compile or something, if you could kind of dodge that even really being like, you know, an email conversation or a deliberation.
Fair enough.
I share your sentiments, though. I have statements here that I'm like, well, I don't deny saying it, but I don't understand what I meant. They're so detailed, and yet there's almost like a way that the gist of the conversation gets lost.
Right.
I too credit Emily for her thoroughness and wonder if her legal background sees this more as really like a transcript.
Right.
But I think the level of detail almost works against us of just kind of what was the. Yeah, I share the sentiment and could send in some places where I would perhaps try to clarify my intent within the conversation or whatnot.
There's I mean, the art of writing minutes is you know, less is more. And you know, sometimes you'll look at Eric's minutes and, you know, we'll talk for 15 minutes about something and I'll just say board discussed, you know, manholes on Wells Street. You know, meanwhile we spent half an hour talking about it.
Right. Well, occasionally less is less. Because you do miss something that's important.
Right.
But we have a chance to add that in like I did last time.
Yeah. I think that maybe let's table the voting on the minutes. I'll talk to Eric and you know, I think that maybe at our next meeting we, you know, I think somebody needs to sort of coach Emily about how to take minutes. And I think that Eric is probably the best person for that.
And that's easy enough. Do you think we should go with Mark's idea of like I'll send my suggested edits into Eric?
Yeah.
And
why don't we
do
do
likewise?
That? Yeah, I mean it's a time consuming thing because there's so much in here to respond to. It's like, yeah, it's like staying naked in front of a mirror. I said that.
Excuse me.
So,
yeah, I guess my concern would be that if we just kick it to the next meeting 2 weeks out to discuss more as a group, which I mean, I guess it would still be on the agenda. But I wouldn't mind getting a couple of thoughts into Eric just before I lose them 2 weeks, 2 weeks down the road. And so whatever you guys think is best, if you want to just kind of, we can all hold our notes, but it seems like it might still be somewhat arduous versus perhaps suggesting some ways that these conversations could be condensed. And yeah, maybe Eric and Emily could even work offline to kind of consolidate these a little before.
the
next meeting.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea. Okay, so we'll table the minutes and we'll forward our suggestions to Eric, and then we'll go over them again in our next meeting.
Mark, Charles, do you need a motion to formally table that, or can we just kind of agree to not consider them, or just to not take a motion to accept them, and therefore there's nothing to table?
I don't know. I don't know the rules. We can't go wrong if we make a motion and
And can I just double check, because I thought, Mark, you were suggesting that rather than us forwarding our reactions to these minutes, there might be the possibility of Eric and Emily conferring to tweak these minutes and resubmit them. Is that?
I guess George, what I was kind of almost thinking was both, is that I would send Eric's my comments around some of what I saw. I wouldn't be surprised if your list was a little bit more detailed than mine, and so I don't know. I don't know how to do this. I don't know what the most easy way to do this is. Perhaps if we all just email Eric individually, he can come to a decision and tell us how he wants it handled.
Very good.
Yeah, right. No, that's the right thing to do. We email our comments individually. We don't just directly to Eric. We don't copy each other, and then I'll have a conversation with Eric about our thoughts on the minutes, and then it would be a good idea for him to give Emily a little bit of coaching, and then we'll I don't know if he's going to condense them for the next meeting or if he's just going
Right.
to put our edits in, but one or the other.
I'll make a motion to that effect of tabling these minutes with suggestions to be sent to Eric, as well as Charles, you conferring with Eric to confer with Emily about
Okay.
the structure of the minutes and
Okay.
level of detail.
Okay.
And I'll second.
Okay. Do we need to discuss this anymore?
No, I don't
Okay.
think so.
All in favor? Aye. Unanimous decision. No roll call required. Next order of business is, I believe, the MDR. I had a conversation with Eric about this today, and actually I followed up with George and I spoke on the phone briefly today, Mark, and so Eric has not yet done the research about into comparable communities, similar communities, and what their regulations state. So he's and that's part of the reason why he's not here tonight, is because he didn't feel like he had anything to add, and he thought that he would be he's going to be looking into that and have that information for us at the next meeting. He did send us the MDR approval since 2000, which is very helpful. And what we talked about is that rather than getting into at this meeting right now, getting into the specifics of the MDR, is talking more about the process, what we want to do, and maybe even setting up a timeline for discussing and potentially moving on something here. I floated the idea of having a public forum discussion at our second May meeting, which is what is the second meeting in May?
'27th.
Really? Okay, so the 27th of May.
Really? That sounds late. First and third,
Oh, wait,
right?
excuse me. I'm sorry. No, that's the 4th. That's the 4th Thursday. My apologies. Not the 3rd. The third Thursday is the 20th. Apologies.
So the 20th would be May 20th. And so we would put out a press release, just briefly stating that we are going to be accepting public comment as we are considering, reconsidering the MDR regulations. We'll find some way to word that. We could even do that this evening if we wanted to figure out how to word that press release, and then we should come up with an agenda for that meeting, and then potentially deliberate and over maybe the next meeting on how we would want to potentially change the MDR, and then initiate a proposal. So if we're meeting on the 21st or the 20th, we would meet again on June 3rd. So does that make sense to you two? Like, so we get public input, and we have an opportunity to sort of discuss. Is it at that meeting where we would formulate an initiative, do you think?
Well, I would think that on May 20th, I like the idea of having a forum, and I think we have to clearly label that this is an informal kind of thing. It's not a formal public hearing, which,
Right.
if there were a process that would happen, but this is just a informal process of getting, many heads looking at this question. I think it would be important to be very clear that this was a board-initiated reexamination of this issue.
Right.
I would say it would be prudent as a courtesy to independently inform the council that we were looking into this, because
Yep.
it would be, proposing potentially a reversal of a fairly recent council decision, or at
Mhm.
least an adjustment to that decision. And I think that's it. Those would be the most important, things I would think to, like I say, reach out to the council prior to it coming out publicly.
Yes, that's a
Um,
good idea.
so that's my basic thoughts on it. I think framing it clearly that we as a body initiated this is important, because it was when we actually had our first discussion. Al Norman was invited here, and I don't think that was a bad idea, but because he had reached out, having seen it was on the agenda, which he's an active public citizen. That's great. And you've had a clear pattern, Charles, of as we talked about, of allowing public input, even when it's not required of you. You've been a flexible chair in that regard. But I think it's important that it not come across or be misunderstood by somebody that this was something that Al had approached the board about and initiated. So I think we need to, state that. We don't have to reference Al at all. I just think
No, we
we
don't
need
even
to.
reference him. We just,
No, but I think
we were doing this without his.
right. But I just think it's important to assert that this was accurately assert that this was a board initiative. I mean, it was my suggestion, but the board agreed to it. So it was a board initiative to do this
Right.
reexamination of this.
Right. So in terms of timing, if we have this public forum on the 20th, then we meet again on, what did I say, the 3rd?
Third.
So we would be sort of, I guess the 3rd is an opportunity for us to sort of assimilate information and then bring our individual thoughts and suggestions to that meeting for discussion.
Well,
George?
did you have something? Go ahead, Mark, if you want.
No, please, George, you finish your thought. Go for it.
I think that if we have people gathered for the forum, it'd be nice after hearing from the public to segue right then into some of our discussion, including, looking at the history in the town, that you referenced, including looking at the comparables. I think that would be nice to have some board deliberation that same evening, if we have enough time on the agenda, so that the public is privy to that without having to come back to another meeting in 2 weeks.
I mean, I actually thought we would do that as a preamble to the public, getting public input. We would talk about the Greenfield history of the MDR, and then what projects have come before us in the last 11 years, and then what have other communities done, and then that gives people some context.
I would see that as being more you framing it, that here's what we've done so far. We've looked at our history. We've gotten some comparables, and that's going to inform our deliberation. We also want to add you into the mix before we get deliberating, and then, depending on the timing, start our deliberation that same evening. That's my thought.
Yeah.
But not get deliberating before we hear from people at the front. Okay.
No. I think there's, like, we set the table.
Yep.
With the history and the comps, and then we hear from people, and then we deliberate, or we discuss. I don't know if we're deliberating or we're discussing, or
right.
we're not really deliberating. There's nothing to vote on.
Right.
So
right. True.
It's more like discussion.
Yep.
And then do you think that we would be able to, in a week and a half time, come back with our own individual thoughts?
I would think.
maybe take a stab at a first draft of an initiative on the 3rd.
So this is actually right where I was going to kind of jump in before with a question of just, is the goal to actually try to have a draft on the 3rd? And is it necessary to set that goal or expectation as opposed to just starting deliberation on the 3rd and seeing where this goes? I guess if we're not going to spend any time discussing this over the next couple of weeks and wait until May, I mean, I guess, right, we can all kind of be doing our own reading through it prior to a forum. Listen, I think the idea sounds great. I guess I'm just a little concerned of like, I don't want us to be saying like, okay, by the end of our meeting on the 3rd, we'll have a new draft written. It sounds a little ambitious. I mean, maybe we'll get there, but.
Well, we don't have to. If we don't, we don't. It's not like we have to do it. It's like, maybe we have a draft of a draft.
Yeah. Okay.
We have some ideas.
I guess I would just hope that, right, we could let it kind of go a little deeper into the month of June if need be, as opposed to like,
no,
nope,
I think
that's it.
No, I'm not gonna, I'm not just, sorry guys, you get it in. We'll be, it has to be an intentional, careful, thoughtful, process, and it doesn't have, there's no time limit here. There's no deadline. Great. I was just wanting to sort of, if you have dates and to get things done, it just keeps things from slipping on and on and on. But
of course,
weeks, if we do, we have our conversation in June, first meeting in June, and then we say, that's good. Let's come back in another week and tune it up. Sure.
There's a third piece that I want to have in hand before we get into this, and that is that little section that was totally removed from the MDR about redevelopment.
Right.
I just want to get the text of that because I know I have it in a pile of papers somewhere, but I couldn't tell you where.
Yeah, I have it. I actually have it somewhere.
Great. Because the other ones, it says something was changed from this to this, so you still have the original, but that just says it was totally removed. So you don't have the text handy. So if you could just, however it could get disseminated, I just want to make sure to see that.
Yeah, I mean that's probably better off for Eric. He's got all those the historic archive, I'm sure, of ordinances. So yeah, we could ask him to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So for the public forum, I guess we would. I'm just trying to think of like what's the agenda for the meeting. I mean, what's the sequence of events, or what's the the choreography of it? And I guess we would welcome people, and we would. I guess one thing, and George, you could do this if you wanted to, is talk about the reasons why we're doing this. Would you feel comfortable doing that?
Sure.
And then I could give a I guess so, and I guess that would include talking about about sort of the trade-off that was made in the MDR and the French King to facilitate the library. And
I would just reference the MDR, and I believe I can do that non-judgmentally.
Okay. But I mean, but the French King was part of it.
It could be referenced, but we're not dealing with that. Wouldn't be dealing with that, so I wouldn't want to. We want to be careful to distinguish that. We're only talking about the MDR right now. We're not talking about that zoning.
Oh, Eric said that we
Overlay.
could talk about the French King in this meeting because it's incidental conversation and they're related.
I'm confident in George's diplomacy skills, though, and his ability to indicate that some of the most recent changes made to the MDR were not perhaps as deliberative as the values that Greenfield likes to see within these processes, and that this is the chance to just bring a more deliberative process back to that examination. So that we're kind of acknowledging that, right, there was a little bit of horse trading, but we don't have to get deep into the weeds of like who that was and how and why, but still speaks truthfully to the desire for a stronger, more deliberative process.
Right.
I trust your ability to kind of finesse that somehow, George.
Thank you, Mark.
I was actually going to throw a couple thoughts out there about this as well, Charles, if you don't mind indulging me.
Yeah, great.
I would love to hear from Eric kind of just an overview of just like the function and the goal, the scope of MDRs. What are they? Why do they exist?
Nice.
I guess I'm thinking that this isn't just about educating us as planning board members, but that if this is a public forum and not a public hearing, that to just kind of start with like, what are we even talking about? What do they do? Why should we care about major development reviews? What do they preserve? What do they allow for?
That's a great
I just feel like
idea.
that's foundational. And I think to have it come from one of the planners, or excuse me, from the city's planner, as opposed to the planning board, it's just a good presentation to have. I mean, you know, this might even be like a couple of slides or something. I don't know. But I'd love to see that put out to the community to help educate them around what the hell we're even talking about.
Yeah, what is an MDR?
Yeah, why do we care? And how is that different from zoning ordinance? Why is this process spelled out? What does it protect? You know, what's the point? And then the other piece is I know that that MDR, like changes to the major development review process might not have been specifically cited in the master plan, but where does doing this work, where does us doing this deliberation tie in with the master plan? What are some of the economic development goals, land use goals, et cetera, that are served? And so maybe that even kind of ties in with function and scope, but I'd love to see some direct connection made between sections of our master plan and how MDRs might factor into that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I mean,
Two good ideas.
Yeah, in terms of we like traffic thresholds dropped, yet the master plan calls for creating pedestrian friendly town.
I think what's funny about the master plan is I think much like the Bible or something, if you want, you can dig deep enough to validate any argument you're looking to make. And I appreciate that. But even from a broad stroke perspective of like, well, how does the master plan inform our long range goals and efforts and activities and strategies? And MDR also connects those long range goals, strategies, et cetera. So it just seems there's got to be some way to at least just even acknowledge which chapters of the master plan are most aligned with or impacted with some of what a major development review would kind of be a part of. Something like this.
Yeah.
Both great ideas, Mark.
And those are things that you think Eric would be in the best position to discuss.
Definitely, I think the first one of just the broad overview, if nothing else. Listen, he's not here. Nobody else is here. So yeah, I think it'd be great for Eric to do that presentation about the master plan. However, if that's not realistic or fair, I would be willing to like do a skim through and toss some thoughts out to Eric, to the whole group. I mean, again, this isn't necessarily a deliberation. This is just content creation for a public forum that we're hosting. It doesn't require votes or whatnot. So I would think that we could do a little bit of batting around via email. If Eric disagrees with that, or Charles, if you as chair disagreed with that, I'm sure we could find some other ways. But I'd take a stab at trying to do some alignment work with my limited experience with major development review, just as something for Eric or the group to respond to. But I don't know that I would necessarily want to present it at the forum as that I'm some kind of expert.
I think it makes sense for Eric to do that. And I think that we can discuss it with Eric when we meet again. Although I guess we have a big agenda coming up at our next meeting on the 5th. that when it is? The 5th of April? Oh, no.
No,
Oh,
today's the
article
1st, so
in April,
the 15th.
in 2 weeks. Yeah.
And I think that I think those are both great ideas, Mark. And I think that we could, similar to the minutes we were talking about, we could, do our own independent look through of the master plan and maybe send to Eric our thoughts, just if he would find that helpful. So, of things that seem to resonate with the MDR. So.
Yeah, and again, it could be kind of broad stroke. I don't think it has to be granular down to like the strategy level of this specific strategy really aligns with major development review. But, if we looked at some of the goals and visions within the chapters, I'm sure we could come up with some alignments.
Nice.
Yep. And then we can run down the history. I think these are probably pretty fresh in people's minds. I don't remember Pioneer Renewable Energy. Is that?
Which one is that? Butternut Street. Where's Butternut?
Oh,
Butternut Street.
I'm blanking. It's ringing a bell, but
it's part of the industrial park. It's Applied Dynamics Corporation.
Okay.
Right near Valley Steel Stamp.
Okay.
All right.
I don't think we have to dwell on these because I think people mostly know them. I mean, I don't think we have to have like slides of each of these properties, but I think we can just sort of run through it. It'd be nice to get a specific date. Oh, well, there is a date.
I think it's also important to offer the data that's not stated there, but which Eric responded to me. None were denied and none were withdrawn. Now, it could be argued, obviously, that the MDR regs were so onerous, potential applicants were scared away. But I think it is notable that everyone who applied was approved.
Right. Yep. So Eric would give the history and purpose, and then George, you might say you're gonna do a brief little explanation for why we're doing this, and then I might talk about the history of MDR and the projects that have gone through in the last 11 years, and then just sort of explain to folks why we've invited them here, and that we welcome your any input you might have for this.
And where were you thinking the tie-in to the master plan would be within that?
Oh, so that's the master plan. I think that should maybe that goes like after your discussion about why we're doing this.
I think you could also close with the master plan. For what it's worth, if we were to see some like just actual Joe and Jane Q citizen attending this, people eat that shit up with a spoon. It's clear, it's visionary, it's unifying. People get behind it and support it. And so I think that it's also just a nice way to drum up support for the work that we're trying to do, because it really speaks to like how we're carrying a vision forward, how this is informing our work on this right now. So I feel like it really grounds it in the present moment with an eye to the future after having talked kind of about the structural function of it in the past. So I feel like kind of ending with, and this is how it ties in with some of the larger goals and visions of this community now. And that's why we're doing this. It just feels like a nice segue and kind of like a wrap up of the presentation, and then turning it over to what do people have to say.
That sounds great. And I hope you'll capture your "people eat this stuff up with a spoon" comment in the minutes.
Right. I am recording granularity. The S-bomb is the granularity that we don't need.
This meeting's being recorded, though. All right, so Eric starts off, and then George, you'll do your explanation as to why, and then is that when you want to go into the master plan thing, Mark, or are you talking about like after the whole conversation's done and we've had public input?
No,
just before the public input.
I think you have Eric start with kind of like the function, scope, and goal. George can talk about kind of, like what led to this. You could then do an overview of the past 20 years. Maybe kick it back to Eric then to kind of bring it back to the master plan. So like 4 elements. The history, or excuse me, like the function and goal, Eric. Then George talking about kind of how this got brought back up within this past year. You providing an overview, you, Charles, providing an overview of the past 20 years worth of MDRs in Greenfield. Kick it back to Eric to talk about how all of this connects to the master plan now, and then open it up for any thoughts.
Yep, sounds good.
Yeah, that's clear. Okay, great. And then once everybody has sort of has spoken, we will we'll discuss amongst ourselves with them there. Do we want to have a dialogue back and forth with the public at that point, or do we want to just sort of say, okay, that public discussion's over, now the board's just going to talk? We want to.
I think the latter. You can't have a back and forth discussion. I don't think it's not really feasible.
Right.
I mean, someone could request to offer a reaction. That would be your call, but I think I would frame it as, when you give the overview of the evening, you would say, after all the public input, then we'll just have the board discuss everything we've heard and other things we've learned. So I would frame it that way. And then if someone has a compelling thing they have to share, you can make a judgment call, but not just leave it a open-ended back and forth.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That all sounds good. And I think this could be included in the press release we're going to be, the planning board's inviting, people for open discussion, learn about, what is an MDR? Why do we have MDR? What's the history of MDR in Greenfield? And feel free to join in discussion about how we can, improve it.
Is there any, is this currently online? I assume like that the zoning ordinance and the zoning map, like all that's online, but I don't know if the MDR, like if the major development review piece is online. If it's not, perhaps we could get it up there, and in the press release also note just like a link to the planning board page or to the document. I think it might be nice for people to be able to skim it before the forum's held.
Yeah, so there's the MDR that's in the ordinance, and then there's the regulations.
Yeah,
I found those. I did find the regulations online, and I can't remember the pathway. I know it is there.
Okay.
Someplace.
But I guess Mark is suggesting it might be made a little more accessible for someone just coming for a one-time shop.
I think putting a link into the MDR rules and regulations would be good.
So what would be the timing of a press release? Is it like a week before or something like that? What makes the most sense? Because it's enough notice, but also people will still have it in mind. It's
I'll
close
still
enough.
remember. Yeah, I don't know, like, well, I don't know. Is there a day of the week that public notices are typically? I think there's a day of the week that public notices are typically posted.
Well, this would be a press release, not a public notice, right?
Right, it's a press release. Right.
So it's just a question of how the recorder is going to handle it, I guess.
Yeah. So like, would Saturday be good? People are kind of at home reading the paper and they're not like on the way out the door, their cup of coffee to go to work.
I don't know that we can control what they'll do with it or when they'll put it in, but I would say maybe the Wednesday, Thursday prior would be the time to contact the paper. Does that sound right to you, Mark?
It would. I mean, frankly, I don't think it would be so terrible to even give 2 weeks notice. But
Really?
you know, here's the thing. I'm like so stuck on like this is the chance for the public to engage, and the reality is I don't know that a ton of people want to or will, and I don't know that it's entirely even. If we create the space, that's what matters. I would almost think 2 weeks notice is better than one, but 1 week's notice is better than none. So
Yeah. My concern is people might get the wrong Thursday or something like that. Just,
Or they read
just
about it and then they
next
forget.
Thursday.
yeah, no, you're right. So I mean, I guess, hey, listen, what if we sent it to them about 10 to 12 days before? And I think George is right. They're going to do what they do with it. I think that we could ask them if it's possible to run it on a certain day if we really had an investment, but I doubt they're going to commit.
And then there'd be also prior to that, Charles, the courtesy notification of the council, which I guess goes through I don't know how that works, actually. You would know better than me, Mark. Did that go through the president or from the chair to the president?
Yeah, I think that Charles could send an email or make a phone call to Penny and just kind of give the heads up, and from there let Penny and the clerk communicate it out as needed.
Right.
Yep. Why don't I draft up the press release for folks' review? And then I'll have that for our next meeting.
Nice. Thank you.
Great.
All right, this will be good.
Yeah, I think so.
It is within our function.
It is within our function. We have the ability. We have the ability to make policy.
I still got a kick out of your line from last time that wasn't captured quite accurately in the notes. But this wasn't good planning. This wasn't bad planning. This was no planning. Crack me up.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to be careful about what you say, It's very, very accurate minutes. All right. So I feel like this is good. We have a process outlined. We have a sketch for a press release. We have a loose time frame that's going to target sometime in June, where maybe we're able to initiate something. Good. Anything else from? Is that that's enough on that, guys?
I think so. Sounds good to me.
Okay.
I agree.
Close out that discussion item. I have no board or staff reports. Do either of you?
No, I was trying to think if there was anything from the master plan committee. Just mentioned that we had a very nice presentation by the tree committee. Oh no,
Yeah.
that was us. That was us.
That was us.
Oh, I thought you were saying that you mentioned to them.
I did mention to them. Boy, I get so back and forth. You're right. We had a very good Oh, but I will mention that there's a related to the downtown business report. There's a process going on about the uh, recovery from COVID, and there's kind of a survey that the members of the master plan committee are participating in to try to look at basically the downtown area. And so that's it's something that it's kind of a hands-on tour, walking tour, looking for various aspects of both the public and private aspects of the downtown environment, and offering score in different aspects. And so this is used to compile a report. And I can't say I have at my fingertips exactly what the outcome would be, but it's to come up with a comprehensive plan of project recommendations. So, and that would come later in the year. So it's just something that related to recovery from COVID. It's kind of a process.
Okay, so this is COVID specific. I'm not making up that you were referencing that this is about kind of like impacts and recovery from COVID.
Well, it's
Ish.
Yeah, it's I'm looking at the information. It's a local rapid recovery program, and it's a statewide process that's happening.
Okay. A local what recovery program, George?
Rapid recovery.
Rapid. Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not a little more. I didn't prepare for this, but I just was thinking when you asked about reports.
So there's a master plan committee.
Yeah. The yeah, there's a sustainable. It's the master plan implementation.
I didn't know it was an ongoing thing. I thought that I didn't know there was an ongoing meeting of these.
Yeah, I'm actually the planning board representative.
Oh, that's right.
That's why he keeps talking about this.
There's it's the Sustainable Greenfield, name of the master plan implementation committee.
Right.
Commonly known as the SGIC.
Right.
This is the one, like, it's actually kind of like written into ordinance, Charles, as part of a strategy to make sure that the plan didn't just kind of catch dust on a shelf, but was really being like integrated into all the municipal departments and whatnot.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's not like really like a group with authority, but more just kind of like tracking, nudging, inspiring.
Yep. And I'm not finding, like I say, at my fingertips more detail about this project. Sorry about that, but I will be more prepared next time.
George, I think for the purposes, I've got what I need for the purposes of the minutes, and I mean, I thought that was a fantastic update. I would be interested to hear more about what happens as the survey and kind of if plans are developed around what can be done.
Nice.
Love to hear it.
Thanks, George.
Yep.
Library meeting was canceled this week, so I don't have anything for that.
And nothing's happening in terms of the Community Preservation Act committee yet.
Right.
So,
Are there are no meetings scheduled even?
I don't know that they've even fully fleshed out the committee. I feel like there's still some community level appointments that haven't been made. So nobody's really been, there's been no initial convening or anything as of yet.
Right.
What I can say is that this was discussed at the last city council meeting, and Roxanne's trying to recruit other people. One thing that was agreed upon is that the community members, I think there are 2, would be people who aren't serving on any other committees. And that was a decision to try to broaden out the representation because there's so much duplication. It obviously might make it a little harder to find, because they say when you need something done, ask a busy person, and you have this, cross-pollination of groups. But that was one thing that was mentioned specifically and actually decided upon. It was an amendment, I think, to the creation of the committee. So.
Okay.
Interesting.
It is.
And then what was so funny is that there's a young high school student, I'm blanking on his name at the moment, who's on the master plan committee because we wanted to have one student representative, and he's great. And he was reappointed to the SGIC, and then one of the counselors said, "Oh, we should get him on the CPA." I'm thinking, you just passed that you can't. Oops.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
There's nothing like the Swiss cheese brain. I've got Swiss cheese brain. I don't even know what committee my own board members are serving on, or what they do, and what the functions are.
And it was also Otis Wheeler keeps prodding the mayor about the zoning working group. So that's she indicated was aware of that and is moving toward creation of that, Charles. So
all right, that's good. I should
in the discussion.
Yeah, maybe I should. I don't know. Maybe I should reach out to the mayor and just sort of express, reaffirm the planning board's commitment to this process, and me specifically as the person who would be serving on it.
Can't hurt, but it was actively discussed. So,
Good.
And she's indicating she's wanting to get that moving sooner rather than later. But
yeah, good. So next meeting date will be 6 o'clock, April 15th.
Very good.
On this channel. So
we're all old enough to remember same bat channel.
Same bat time, same bat channel. Only
Emily would be looking at us strange, but
only weirdos of a certain age, have any resonance with that. All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, discussion. All in favor?
Good night.
Unanimous. See you guys later. Thanks a lot.
All right, good to see you. Take care.